Are you ready for next level growth in your business? Welcome to the Lindsay Anderson Show, where we pull back the curtain on the exact strategies, tools, and mindsets that build million-dollar empires. If you're hungry for more time, more freedom, and a whole lot more impact, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, because we're about to ignite your business journey. Now, here's Lindsay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Lindsay Anderson Show. I'm so excited for today's interview. We have a very special guest, Mr. Bob Burg. He is a co-author of the international bestseller, The GoGiver, a book that has sold over 1 million copies and has been translated into more than 30 languages. His groundbreaking work teaches us that true success comes from giving value to others, not just in business, but in every aspect of life. Today, Bob will share his insights on how adopting a go-giver mindset can transform your business, your relationships, and your life. You do not want to miss this conversation. So let's dive in and welcome Mr. Bob Burg to the show. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Wow, what a nice introduction, Lindsay. Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here. I read your book. I think it's really fantastic. If you were to summarize your book in just a few sentences, how would you summarize it for those who have not had the pleasure of reading your book?
I would just say that the basic premise is that shifting your focus, and I think that's really where it all begins, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for any kind of way out there, woo, magical, mystical reasons. No, just give and things will get. No, not at all. It's actually much more practical than that. That person who can take your focus off yourself and instead place it on serving others, discovering their needs, their wants, their desires, helping them to solve and overcome their problems and challenges, helping move them closer to happiness. People feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. And they want to tell the world about you. They want to be your personal walking ambassador. And it's just told in the form of a parable with the magnificent author, John David Mann. It was just a fun project to work on.
Very cool. So, in terms of showing up, because this is basic sales, like you always got to be focused on your client or on your prospect and their problems, and it's all about them. But we live in a world, and we're human beings, and the whole world revolves around us. And so,
Right.
how do we get out of only thinking about us and our needs and our business needs, and actually focusing on the person on the other side?
So it's understanding first, Lindsay, that it is human nature to be self-centered and self-focused. However, being self-focused is not an effective way of selling.
That's
So
right.
once someone understands that, for example, when I used to be on the road speaking, one of the first things I would do when addressing an audience full of salespeople is I'd begin by saying, nobody is going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right? Nobody's going to buy from you because you have a sales goal to meet. Nobody's going to buy from you because you need the money. And nobody's going to buy from you just because you're a really nice person.
That's right.
They're going to buy from you because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's the only reason that we would legitimately expect anyone to do business with us, with you, with me, with anyone. So the most self-interested thing that a sales professional can do is to suspend their self-interest
That's right.
and make it about totally focusing on that other person, because to the degree that you're able to communicate that what you have is of such high value to them that it's worth the price they're paying, that's the degree the sale is going to take place.
I love that. Bob, was there a time in your life that you've had a really long and successful career? Was there a time that actually made that you turn into a go-giver versus the other way around? Was there a particular instance?
I was very fortunate to be brought up by two wonderful parents who I think embodied this. And so I got to live this. I got to see it all the time. And it's same with John David Mann. His parents were very similar in that way. You grow up different things and different people doing things in certain ways. And Sometimes things that don't seem right happen, and other times things work out exactly as it seems they should. And there's all these differentials, but you begin to see patterns over time. And what I saw in the business world is that those people who were sustainably successful financially and also in terms of healthy relationships, healthy self-esteem, these were the people who tended to really place their focus on making other people's lives better, not in a self-sacrificial way, but in a way that really lifted everyone. And I do recall, though, that after I'd been in sales for a couple of years and after a slow start, because I knew nothing about selling, I was able to find some great books. And this is about 40 years ago. And those weren't always easy to find back then. You didn't know about them unless you knew. And I didn't. And I was able to find some good books and then make a study of sales. And fairly quickly, my sales began to go really well. A couple of years later, I was working for another company selling a high ticket item, and I started out in a slump and was having trouble getting out of the slump. And I did a young salesperson's mistake. I put the focus on getting out of the slump instead of the focus being on helping customers, which would have gotten me out of the slump. There was a gentleman at the company where I was working. He was an older guy. I didn't know him very well. Nice guy. He wasn't in the sales department. I think he was an engineer. And he was one of these people we've all come across. He didn't say much, but whenever he did, it was typically something profound. And
Yes.
I think he saw me as sort of Joe in the Go-Giver, who I would write about 25 years later with John David Mann. He saw me as that young, up and coming, ambitious, aggressive, good guy whose focus was in the wrong place. And he said to me, Burg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Burg, can I give you some advice? And I said, yeah, please do. I need it. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, don't have making money as your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he continued, you'll get a reward. And that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, he said, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It isn't the target. Your target is serving others. And Lindsay, what that said to me really at that moment was that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. Great salesmanship is never about the product or service, as important as those are. Really great salesmanship is about the other person. It's about that person whose life you're trying to add value to. And perhaps even more accurately, it's about another person's life being better just because you are part of it. If we approach sales from that foundational premise, we're always 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
So it's really all about intent. If your intent is to meet a sales quota, things are going to be hitting you that way. If your intent
Right.
is to help customers, you're going to have success. I love
Mhm,
this.
mhm.
I got to know this, Bob. So 40 years ago, you're at the library looking for the book. What are these books that you read 40 years ago that transformed you from in a sales sense?
Yeah,
Anything?
so I went to the bookstore looking for something, not for something in sales, because remember, I didn't even know there was such a thing. So I
Okay.
figured somewhere in this big bookstore, and I don't even remember the name of it. I'm looking around for just something about business that was going to help me to know and there was a sales section. And I thought, what? There's actually a section on how to sell. Because remember, when I first started, not only did I know nothing about sales, Lindsay, the company I was working for didn't either. The sales training consisted of this: go out and sell.
Go, go meet your quota.
I don't even think they knew even that. I don't even
Okay.
think they were that advanced. So I see sales and I see 2 books. One is by Tom Hopkins, How to Master the Art of Selling, and the other is by Zig Ziglar, 2 of the icons in the sales space. And I got those books. I took them home. I did not read them. I devoured them. I would just go through those things every night till the wee hours of the morning, highlighting, taking notes, practicing, drilling, rehearsing, just immersed myself. And the interesting thing was, it really wasn't 3 weeks later till my sales began to improve. What it was that I had a methodology now, right? I
Yeah.
had you could say I had a system to follow. And to this day, I personally, and I'm always defining terms, so probably obnoxiously, but I define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key being predictability, right? Because of its if it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired result of B, then you know that all you need to do is A and continue to do A and continue to do A, and you'll eventually get the desired results of B. So once you have that, you can feel a lot more confident in the work you're doing.
I love that. And I love the thoughts of having a sales system and how important that is because I've seen it and I'm sure you have as well, which is people think that like being a good salesperson is like how you're born and it's all about like rapport and really just like being able to appeal to people. But there is another level of adopting a skill set and adopting a system that can take that natural rapport that you have and really just take it to the next level.
I think people assume that somebody who is extroverted necessarily makes the best salesperson, and it's just not necessarily true at all. I think introverts have an advantage in a sense because they're less likely to want to talk about themselves. They derive more energy by placing their focus on others and letting the other person talk about themselves, which allows you not only to create a wonderful rapport, but to learn about that other person, as opposed to the extrovert who's just talking and talking. So a little counterintuitive unless you really begin to understand human nature.
That's right. That's right. So, in terms of go giving and your financial goals, help us have some clarity here, Bob. A lot of people struggle with over delivering where they're bending over backwards for their clients and they end up like in the hole because they're just like giving too much. Can you make a distinction there?
Oh, yeah, very much. And that is that there is nothing about being a go-giver that is congruent with being a doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Of course, that's what we want to do. But that in no way should be a sacrifice in any way. That should in no way be harmful to us. Anything that we do should always be uplifting for both parties, for
I love
them
that.
and for us.
I love that. I would like to talk just a little bit now about influence because you talk a lot about influence. Is there a common misconception that people have about influence that you could clear up for us?
Yeah, I would say, and let me begin first by just giving again my definition of influence.
Great. Great.
So basically, on a very basic level, influence is simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. That is, by definition, influence. Now, it's not necessarily its essence. The essence of influence, pull as opposed to push. We've all heard the saying, how far can you push a rope? And we know the answer is not very fast or very effectively, which is why great influencers don't push. They don't push themselves. They don't push their will. They don't push their ideas on others, right? You never hear people say, wow, that Tom or that Mary, she is so influential. She has a lot of pull with people. That's what influence at its best is. It's an attraction. Great influencers attract people first to themselves and only then to their ideas. And again, they do this through pull. Now, this pull manifests itself through intent. Where is your intent? Your intent is to make life better for that other person. It's being internally motivated, but outwardly focused. So the great influencer is asking themselves questions such as, how does what I want this other person to do align with their goals, with their needs, with their wants, with their values? How does it help them solve a problem? Right? And when we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully and intelligently, genuinely, not as a way to manipulate another human being into doing our will, but as a way of, again, building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment. Now, this goes back to a misunderstanding about influence. Isn't that manipulation? Again,
Yeah.
it depends on intent. A manipulator, it's all about themselves. Okay. Dr. Paul W. Sweat's in a great book he wrote decades ago, The Art of Talking So That People Will Listen, although it's much more about listening than talking, was a wonderful book. And he said, manipulation aims at control, not cooperation. It does not consider the good of the other party. it results in a win-lose situation. On the other hand, always seeks to enhance the self-esteem of the individual. It's always about treating people as responsible individuals. It's always about making sure that other person benefits and feels good about the situation. So when people say influence is not manipulation, no, manipulation is manipulation. But when you
Yeah.
influence through persuasion, that's respecting the other person, their needs, wants, desires, their ability to be self-determining. It's ultimately up to them, but you're presenting your case in such a way that you help them to see why it is in their best interest.
Can you share your thoughts around this? So, when it comes to influencing people and being this kind of go giver that you're talking about, how much of that is how you view yourself versus how other people are treating you?
I think respect always begins from within, right? It's a respect from others, I think, is really more of a reflection of how you feel about yourself. It's difficult for other people to respect you when you don't respect yourself. Working on ourselves, our strengths, our weaknesses, I think that's such an important part of life. And that's where everything else begins.
I like that. I like that. Now, you talk about this concept of giving without expectation. So that can feel a little counterintuitive to some people. How do you help people trust to give without expectation and just trust that the return will be there?
So interesting. People credit me with saying give without expectation. I actually don't say that. I don't say that term.
I'm sorry, Bob.
What I usually say is give without attachment.
Attachment.
Yeah. And that to me is
Different.
what I think people mean when they say give without expectation is don't have an agenda. I think what they mean is don't be attached to the outcome. I want people to expect good things. I
Yeah.
want you to know that if you're providing wonderful value to the marketplace, if you're always looking to see how you can help and please and make life better for another person, I want you to expect good things to come back. I just don't want you to be attached to them having to come back because when we're attached, now we are emotionally locked in to a certain result.
Yeah, and
And
there's also like a time frame on that, right? Like you never know
sure,
when these things are gonna.
exactly. And attachment always equals misery. And the Buddhists told us that a long
They
time ago. And
say.
I think most religious traditions have something along those ways. So now let's look at how can you really have faith that things are going to happen like that if you're a go giver. And see, to me, it takes more faith to think that good things are going to happen when you're focused only on yourself. Because
Right.
again, people aren't buying from you, doing business with you, referring business to you, saying great things about you when you're self-focused.
I love
And so
that.
to me, it takes much more faith to think that you can be successful that way than if you're
Now,
providing value to the marketplace. That to me, that takes no faith to realize it's going to happen. And it doesn't happen faster because again, you're creating these great waves.
I love that. Now, I'm not gonna let you off the hook on this because I want your definition of faith, Bob, since you used that several times in this last answer of yours.
Faith is basically the belief that an event is going to occur even though it hasn't. And I know there's other definitions of faith, of course, and they all serve a wonderful purpose. But mine is faith is a belief that an event that has not yet happened is going to happen.
I love that.
And that, yeah, and that's why I would say it takes more faith to think that you're going to have a sale.
So we have a lot of people who are in the traditional sales mindset. Obviously, there's this is the way that it goes. What would your advice be? Do you have a couple of tips for those individuals who are in a traditional sales mindset and to shift over to the go giver model?
So let's run through maybe an example.
Great.
So let's say that you are the prospective customer or client, and I'm the salesperson. I need the money. This go-giver stuff is great after I don't need the money anymore. But this focusing on other stuff is right now, I need the money. So that's what I'm going to focus on. You're my prospect. And we're sitting down to have a sales conversation. I'm asking you some questions because I've been trained to do. I'm asking you the questions. I'm not really listening to understand Lindsay and Lindsay's needs. I'm really listening just so I can sharp angle you into a close later on, right? When you have an objection, I'm a little bit defensive. Now, I'm not coming across that way, but there's still that you can
I'm
see that
picking it
there's
up.
a
I'm picking
little
it.
the energy of
Yeah.
that. Exactly. Because your objection standing in the way of my commission. And I'm closing early and I'm closing often. And by the time we're through with our sales conversation, I'd ask the question based on what we just mentioned: are you more likely or less likely to have the trust in me to want to buy from me? And the chances are probably not so much. Okay.
That's
Now,
right.
let's take the same situation. I need the money and whatever, but what I'm going to do is I'm not going to deny my self interest, because I'm not a big believer in denying truths. And the truth is, as human beings, we are self interested creatures. It's how our cave person ancestors survived and passed along their genes to the ensuing generation. So we have that inside us. We don't have to deny it. But what we can do is we can place it to the side.
I
We
like
can
that.
suspend our self interest and decide we're going to focus totally and absolutely on the customer. Okay. So I'm going to now ask you questions, but I'm listening,
That's right.
because now my goal is to really get what you need, want, and desire. I need to know what problems you're having that I could possibly help you with through my product or service, but that comes later. And even when you give me the answers, I'm not going to assume that I know exactly what you mean, because I realize that we come from different worlds, different belief systems. We interpret things, we define things different ways, even unconsciously. So I'm going to I'm going to tactfully and respectfully ask you to clarify when I'm not certain. And only after I'm positive that I understand your needs, wants, desires, goals, so forth, am I going to then connect the benefit of my product or service with those needs, wants, and desires. Now, when you have an objection, I'm going to welcome that objection. I'm going to assure you it's a great question to bring up, because you need to feel comfortable with this if we're going to be able to advance. But I'm not going to just give you the standard response to an objection, because I don't even know that's the actual objection you have. That may just be the manifestation of the actual objection. You don't know the process like I know the process, because I'm in the business. And so I know that sometimes people will ask a question about something because they don't know what else to ask, but they're feeling like there's something they're just not right. So what we're going to do is, instead of my trying to overcome your objection, we're going to work together and get to the actual root or heart of the objection. And then together in partnership, we're going to walk through it in order to advance the sale. By the time I ask you to take action, okay, I'm simply asking you to act upon something that you've already told me that you want to do. But mainly, you can sense that I have your well being at heart. Now, my question would be, are you more likely or less likely to want to buy from me? And the chances are probably more likely. And so I would explain it like that to the person who doesn't quite get why doing it the old salesy way of being focused on you and trying to just sharp angle into the close and using all the why it's so counterproductive. Whereas truly putting that other person's interests first is actually the best way to have that sale happen.
And I think it really comes down to intent. Okay, I'm going to go into this call and I'm going to suspend my own self interests in the
Exactly.
interest of my client and really center in on that and then act accordingly. I love
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
All right, Bob, you've been teaching these principles for so many years. We're in a different time now with AI and the internet. How do these principles apply into the future?
I think principles withstand the test of time, which is why they're principles. Now, I think strategies certainly, and different techniques, tactics, whatever you want to use, they can change because we have more things to use. For 35 years, since my first book, Endless Referrals, my kind of calling card, in a sense, has been the saying, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know and trust. But the saying isn't that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those computers they know, like, and trust. It's always the human. Technology, and hey, it's great. Technology should always be used as a means to an end, never the end itself. It's a means to an end. And that end is the human connection. When you can use technology, AI, for that reason, it's always fantastic. I think it really comes down to that. We talk about B2B, business to business, and B2C, business and consumer. It's always H to H, human to human. Always has been, is now, always will be. It's just that technology, if used correctly, can make it easier to do that.
I love ending here with our interview on H to H. I love it. Bob, before I let you go, I'm going to turn the time over to you to let everybody know where to find you and anything else you want us to know.
People are welcome to visit Burg, and that's burg.com. While they're there, they can subscribe to my daily impact email. I send it Monday through Friday. They can check out the GoGiver Academy, which is the GoGiver Success Vault. And really, there's just a whole lot of fun things. So just explore burg.com if you'd like, and look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks for being on the show, Bob. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate you.
There you have it, folks. Another really powerful interview here on The Lindsay Anderson Show. A big thank you to Bob Burg for being on the show today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Lindsay Anderson Show. Cheers to you and your success.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Lindsay Anderson Show. If you loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share how you're leveling up your business. Want more? Connect with Lindsay Anderson and get the tools you need to crush your goals at lindsayaa.com. Until next time, keep pushing, keep growing, and turn those business dreams into reality.